Hey everyone, what is going on? Today I'm talking about how I put paddle shifters into my Dodge Stratus. First off, it's an automatic. I can't remember the exact model number. I'll put it in here, what the transmission model is. But it is electronically controlled. So up here in the engine bay, this is my engine control. And right here is the transmission control, the TCM and the ECM. So right there, this is the brains of all the automatic shifting and everything. And Dodge has a system called Auto Stick. So basically, it's like Tiptronic, and when you engage it, you can move the shifter left and right and select through the gears. Let me try to show you. So here's the shifter. And then you got reverse, neutral, drive. And then instead of a low gear, it goes into auto stick. What that means now is you can downshift and upshift your gears. And basically, see that little, let me see if I can move this up a little bit more. So right here is your like switching mechanism for left and right when it moves. There's your connector, all that stuff. And it's a fairly simple system. So basically, since I'm going to be talking about this, because I did this in the past, and when I figured it all out, I put all that information on the Stratus forum. So I'm going to rob pictures from there so you're not looking at my face the whole time. So here are the paddle shifters now, how they look installed. And you know, you got your up over here, your down over here, and they are mounted to the back of the wheels. Real nice there, if I can get it to focus. And they work really well. If you've watched some of my driving videos, you can see me, you know, when I'm doing the POV stuff or when I'm in-car autocross, you can see me using them. And they come in very handy. It's very nice to have them so that I can select the gears, stay in a gear, you know, so the transmission doesn't go, hey, you should shift, you're at a high RPM. When it's in manual auto stick Tiptronic mode, basically I can control it. It'll let the gear wind out and hit rev limiter a couple times before it goes, hey, you're not shifting and shift, and it won't downshift until you come to a complete stop. And the only other thing is you can't start in fourth gear. I think you got to be going 15 or 20 before you can put it in fourth. So what I'm gonna do now is I want to start putting up some pictures, and I'm going to explain the whole process of how to swap it or retrofit paddle shifters into the car. So I actually found out how to put paddle shifters in because I wanted them. I really was trying to figure out how to do it, whether using like a different steering wheel, stuff like that. And what I came across was on the Charger forums, the guys with the new Chargers before the paddle shifters were on the wheel, they had found a way to put these on. So basically, I had a friend look up the schematic for the auto stick and found out that it was similar enough, and I basically copied it and just modified it so it would work on the Stratus. So basically, you're going to be working with the steering wheel and airbag. You got to pull them off, so you got to disconnect the battery. That's the first. And you're going to have to get paddle shifters. I got the ones the Charger guys used were from an SLK 55 AMG. And I'll leave the part number down below, or I'll put it on the screen or something. And you're going to need a Dremel, some torque bit stuff, you know, and you're going to need some wire and stuff like that, so you know, because you're going to have to be cutting wires and stuff. And the only other thing you need is 2 bolts for the paddle shifters to mount them, and they're like a 4mm by like 0.7 thread. And I got them like 40mm long, so I could cut them down as needed. So I'm going to start putting pictures up now. So first you have to pull the airbag. Pretty simple. It's, you know, just a couple screws from the back and it pulls off the front and you have to unclip it. And then you got to pull the steering wheel. Sometimes you can just pop them off or whatever. And then once you got the steering wheel off, this is where you got to start modifying the wheel. Alright, so now that I got the steering wheel over on the workbench, basically I mocked up where the paddle shifters would fit the best. You do need somewhere to drill to mount so it stays physically in there, but you have to Dremel out and cut out the area so it sits flush. So I taped the back of the wheel and went at it with a Dremel. My Dremel skills back then were not as good. And once I got it Dremeled out, I marked where the hole would go through, like the metal of the steering wheel, and drilled through. And then you got to start wiring. So I have a poorly paint drawn schematic up here. And basically the auto stick, the up wire and the down wire look to go to ground to tell the computer to shift up or down. So basically what I did is the Mercedes paddle shifters, they're just momentary switches. So I grounded the one wire, and then I took the other one, and that was going to be what you'll see in a little bit here how I wired it. But I grounded one right here now to the back where like the cruise control buttons are. I just used the same bolt for the cruise control to hold that down. And then this is where you got to fit your bolt through, and you got to put it in to where it's snug, and then you got to keep trimming it off slowly, so that way there's only so much plastic on the back of the paddle shifter button, so you can't like keep screwing in. So you either got to use washers or whatever to get it mounted. And once you trim down the screw enough to where it holds the paddle shifter snug and you don't strip it or anything, you got it mounted just like this. And now that they're mounted, you got to modify the clock spring. Well, not really modify it. The airbag clock spring, there are wires in it for the cruise control. So you lose the cruise control when you gain paddle shifters. So basically, I got all the wires out of the way. The down paddle had like a blue wire on it. And I went to like the red wire on the clock spring. And then the black wire went to the yellow, which was upshift. And then the other side of the buttons were grounded. And your other wire is for your horn, so you don't want to mess with that. So once I got the clock spring wired figured out in the hub, then on the back of the column where the plug comes out of the clock spring on like the column side, basically I had to snip the plugs there. And on the wiring diagram here, it shows like that red and black wire coming through for the two wires coming through for the up and down shift, what used to be for cruise control. And I snipped on there, and then I grabbed two wires of red and yellow and fed them through the dash down to the center console where the where the actual auto stick shifter is. Then what I did there is I actually kept the auto stick in the center console as well. So I piggybacked, like I just tapped into the wire for the up and down shift there. Spliced those red and wires in for up and down shift, taped them all back together and plugged it back into the center console, and then I mounted the wheel. So hopefully that's a good enough explanation of how I did it. On the wiring diagram you can see like on the actual center console you have like a red wire for power, you have a black and red for ground, and then there's like where I put like the yellow and green wires where I spliced into the up and down shift, and those fed to the back of the clock spring, and then it goes through the clock spring into the wheel, and then I got my up and down shift. So that's how I got the paddle shifters, and they work really well. I really like them. I was actually doing some research, and if you want to spend the money, Works Bell makes a hub. It costs like $500 some, but then you can use like a Works Bell or a Sparco, steering wheel, and still have paddle shifters. You wouldn't be able to do the quick release, but their paddle shifters and their whole little hub assembly and everything they use work the same way. They're momentary buttons, and I was looking on like some Celica forums, and some guy had done it. He had used the Celica auto stick feature, or Tiptronic, or whatever Toyota calls theirs, and he managed to get it to work through the Works Bell, because it's just the same thing. It's just like a momentary button. So in theory, I could remove the factory steering wheel and have paddle shifters with like a Sparco or Energy or Works or any steering wheel that I want. But I just wanted to go over that and how I put that in there, and it's been in there quite some time. The actual how-to on the forums I actually posted in 2012, so I probably posted it like the same week that I did it. My one friend helped me find the wiring diagram, and once I found out that it was pretty simple, it's not too bad. So it's basically only running 2 wires and, you know, fitting 2 buttons to your steering wheel, but they work really well. I really like them. I figured I'd just kind of go over how I did that. It was a simple enough mod if you go easy with your Dremel and can figure out how to mount stuff pretty well. But yeah, I really like them. I love using them during autocross because, you know, there might be points where you need to stay in like 2nd gear, and you can just kind of ride it a little bit higher RPM, not have to worry about the transmission trying to up or down shift, and it comes in very handy. The transmission hasn't acted any weird, you know, always using auto stick for autocross and stuff, so paddle shifters work great. I really like the mod. Given the chance, I would like to try to do the Works Bell paddle shifter thing, but you know, $500 for just the paddles with the hub, you know how they're built. Then you got to buy another hub and a wheel and all that. But it's a quick little mod on the Stratus. I'm sure it can work on some other cars because the Charger guys did it. And like I said, I saw the Celica guys do it with the Works Bell kit, and I think some of the first gen Avengers, you know, the coupes back in the day, since they still had the auto stick, I'm pretty sure that worked the same way. So it's a pretty easy mod if your car already has auto stick. I know some of the Stratuses didn't come with it. I believe to do it you kind of got to grab some transmission parts to make it work, but it's worth it. It's definitely worth it. It's a decent mod to do if you're going to be performance driving your automatic. And that's basically it. If you guys have any questions, hit that little guy here. Leave a comment below. Try to answer them. And like and subscribe. Until next time.